of moral development. Who is Piaget? Jean Piaget was one of the most influential researchers in the area of developmental psychology during the 20th century. Piaget originally trained in the areas of biology and philosophy and considered himself a genetic epistemologist. He was mainly interested in the biological influences on how we come to know. He believed that what distinguishes human beings from other animals is our ability to do abstract symbolic reasoning. Processes of cognitive development. As a biologist, Piaget was interested in how an organism adapts to its environment. Piaget describes this as intelligence. Behavior. Adaptations to the environment is controlled through mental organizations called schemata, sometimes called schema or schemes, that the individual uses to represent the world and the designated action. This adaptation is driven by a biological driven to obtain balance between schemes and the environment. Equilibration. Piaget hypothesized the infants are born with a schema operating at birth that he called reflexes. In other animals, these reflexes control behavior throughout life. However, in human beings, as the infant uses these reflexes to adapt to the environment, these reflexes are quickly replaced with constructive schema. Piaget described two processes used by the individual in its attempt to adapt: assimilation and accommodation. Both of these processes are used throughout life as a person increasingly adapts to the environment in a more complex manner. Accommodation and assimilation. In assimilation, what is perceived in the outside world is incorporated into the internal world. Note that I am not using Piaget's terminology, without changing the structure of that internal world, but potentially at the cost of squeezing the internal perceptions to fit, hence pigeonholing and stereotyping. In accommodation, the internal world has to accommodate itself to the evidence with which it is confronted and thus adapted to, which can be more difficult and a painful process. Accommodation. This is an example of what accommodation is. You saw this four-legged animal for the first time. The child calls her four-legged pet doggy. The child calls the new animal a doggy, and the mommy told her it was a cow. Illustration. When the child saw a cow for the first time, she was assimilated to her schema of doggy as four-legged animal. When the mother told her that it was a cow, she was accommodated to this new information and referred to the animal as cow, not a doggy. The child will learn that not all four-legged animals is called a doggy. In assimilation, this is what happens. She saw this four-legged animal for the first time, calls her four-legged pet doggy. Child will call this a doggy. When a child first sees a Dalmatian dog, the child will interpret this information based on his or her existing mental frameworks and will label it doggy. The stages of moral development. Sensory motor. Beginning at birth up until 2 years, the sensory motor stage coordinates the senses with motor responses. The sensory curiosity about the world, language used for demands and cataloging. Object permanence is also developed in this stage. Pre-operational, from ages 2 to 7. This stage is symbolic thinking. They use proper syntax and grammar to express full concepts. The imagination and intuition are strong, but complex abstract thought is still difficult. The conservation is developed. Concrete operational. The age 7 through 11 concepts attached to concrete situations, such as time, space, and quantity, are understood and can be applied, but not as independent concepts. Formal operations. After 11 years, the theoretical, hypothetical, and counterfactual thinking, abstract logical thinking and reasoning, as well as strategy and planning become possible. Concept learned in one context can be applied to another. And there you go, Piaget and the stages of moral development.